Good evening, Jeopardy fans, and welcome to Hashtag Jeopardy Live panel presented by thejeopardyfan.com. Once again, I am Andy Saunders. It is March 13th, 2017 at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. And let's get right to tonight's panel. I've got a couple of contestants from last week's games. First up, as always, I introduce in the order of when you were introduced on the show. And in this case, we're about 5 seconds apart. So first up, Andy Marggraf. You won a couple games last week. Congratulations. Thanks for joining me.
Of course. Thank you.
And also we've got introduced shortly after Annie was on the show, John Paul Gove. Thanks for joining me, John Paul.
My pleasure.
So, I mean, you guys got the opportunity to play against each other. I believe, Annie, you mentioned you guys kind of spent a lot of time talking in the two episodes before that in the audience. So what was it like, you know, getting drawn to play against each other?
It was exciting. It was really cool. We had sat side by side for the other games and whispered the answers to each other and snickered and giggled and yeah. And I was like, the eyebrow dude is awesome. It was a lot of fun,
actually. I was disappointed when they called both of our names because I kind of wanted to, you know, spend more time hanging out. And I knew, like, at the end of this, one of us isn't going to be playing anymore. So I was like, our conversations are going to be over. I wanted us both to go at the end of the day, the last game.
Me too. Me too. I liked the idea of a go-go dancer and an unemployed bartender going up together, but I didn't like the implications of us not being able to, you know, play separately, I suppose.
Right.
Sort of.
It kind of would have been neat if both of us could have won, you know, to kind of not be one of the more sophisticated employment profiles, you know, but alas, the bartender beat the go-go.
Well, you know, a lot of people have asked me why I chose unemployed bartenders. Certain people who aren't really savvy to the behind the scenes stuff thought that Jeopardy was throwing shade, which I thought was really funny, but it actually has to do with, I tried out when I was 23. And at that time, aside from being like a professional mess, I was an unemployed bartender, and I thought it was fun symmetry to like bring it all around again the second time that I tried out. I made the cut the first time, but they never pulled me from the contestants pool. I was just part of the available people.
Was this the first time you tried out, John Paul?
Yes, actually, my friends have been asking me to do it for years. And I always knew that my weak spot, which wound up being on the show too, was the fact that I'm just really slow with the buzzer. I always practice with like a pen or a fake buzz or something. I've just never been really quick at the ringing in. But I decided, you know what, let's just finally go for it anyway. And so I did the test last January or whenever they were doing it. Not this year, but, you know, 2016. And I didn't think anything was going to come of it because the delay between then and when they get in touch with you is often just so long.
True.
I didn't hear from anybody until, you know, they were doing auditions. I think it was July when I first went in and talked to them. So that came as a totally out of left field from them. And then I think a phone call, because at first I didn't even respond. I think the email went into my spam folder because I didn't even, you know, I thought it was a done deal. But then they called me and said, hey, would you come in? And so I went to the audition, and it wound up being a great experience. I had a lot of fun with the mock games and the other people that you go up against. It's a little bittersweet because you go into the room, everybody's excited, but you kind of have this feeling like a lot of the people in here aren't going to make it. You know, they only take 1 out of 10 from that class that you're in. And so people leave, and there's just kind of this little bit of fear and excitement on people's faces. But that was a great experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, but my second experience was much different from the first because it was 17 years ago, the first time I tried out. And this is like pre-internet. Well, I mean, the internet existed. It wasn't tin cans and a string, but it was a long time ago. There was no registration online. You didn't get to pick like a date. I was in town. My folks are from LA, and I was in town for Thanksgiving and had some time to kill. And I called the studio, and they were like, do you want to come in tomorrow or in 3 months? I'm like, well, I'll see you tomorrow. And it was all very kind of analog. And this experience was much different. And John Paul, did you just try out in person, period? Because you live in the local? Or did you go online first? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I got the email.
No, mine was because I was local. I went right in.
Right. we signed. You sign up. You do the test online. They don't tell you how you do. You're just floating in the ether, and then get an email a few months later, and we want you to come to this super secret squirrel audition. And drove up to Seattle for that. And then again, like John Paul was saying, just silence. Like, does anybody hear me? So it was really, yeah.
You know, one of the things I think that is a good bit of advice for people who want to try to get on the show and they get to the audition, you know, really you have to have fun while you're there and show that you like having fun with strangers. I mean, that's really the chemistry that they're looking for. And I think a lot of people come and they try to perform and say right answers instead of just saying what you're feeling or what you're thinking. And they love it when you give an off-the-cuff response, like what I wanted to do with my winnings. And I said, you know, I'm probably going to find somebody handsome and take him to Paris. And they laughed. And then one of the other contestants got up and said, well, I think I'm going with John Paul to Paris when I win. And I kind of laughed and I said, well, it's going to get crowded. And they just loved that. and I remember when they called me, they actually, Maggie told me, she said, that's why I wanted, she's like, I remembered that response, remember from the day. And it was, you know, just something you could never have planned. It's not part of like an interview response or anything. It was just me being me. And I think that's really what they kind of look for when you're there.
Yeah, I don't feel like my audition was overwhelming or dazzling. There was some rescheduling that had to happen because I was in school and had munchkins and a lot of other dumb stuff going on. And so when I showed up, I was behind the 8 ball. They had sent out packets to everybody else who didn't need special favors in the email. So I was trying to fill out all these salient points about how awesome and interesting I was just within moments, broken pencil, frantic. And then they said they did ask both auditions. They asked, "What would you do if you won?" And this time around, I just didn't have time to get really clever and interesting, and blurted out something stupid about like an origami convention. And irony alert, I went to a calligraphy convention this last summer, and it was awesome. But if I had had my druthers and had a moment to think, so like the moment I was done speaking, I'm like, I should have told this thing about wanting to go on a road trip with my mother-in-law to all the like Laurie Ingalls Wilder spots all over the country.
Ooh, that's fun.
Then that is an ambition, and it's true, and it's interesting, and it's unusual, and of course I didn't think of it. So
for the record, at my last audition, I talked about a trip to Thailand to play in the King's Cup Scrabble tournament. Basically, they have thousands and thousands of Thai Scrabble players all in this shopping mall, and basically they have an international division as well, and basically, it's a massive Scrabble tournament that it's kind of like a bucket list item for a lot of Scrabble players. And
Thailand.
So,
well, I mean, who would want to go to Thailand and play Scrabble? Like that's like a double threat right there. Those both sound like win-wins.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of how to make that any better. Like, what would be the third thing? I know, right?
Thailand, Scrabble, I'm in.
Yeah. Scrabble, yeah.
So, okay, my next question's for you, John Paul. How did you mentioned that your mom did not know about your go-go dancing occupation? How did she react?
Well, she does. Yeah, she does now. You know, it's funny. She didn't take it too well, actually. She was looking when I talked to her after I aired, because I was actually at the gym. I didn't know I had forgotten about the air date. I'm at the gym on the treadmill. And I come on the TV and the lady next to me, she's looking at me and she's like trying to like put the pieces together. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And my friend started texting me, you know, you're on Jeopardy. And I was like, oh, today's obviously the day. So I texted my mom and said, oh, you might want to watch Jeopardy, because she's been for years saying you should go on Jeopardy. You should do this. Because I mean, I'm that guy, you know, yelling at the TV, saying the right answers.
Yeah. Well,
trying to. And she's like, you should do this. You should do this. So I finally did it. But then I didn't think they were going to actually ask me about the go-go thing. And because we had this whole story about me eating crackers in Nepal and not knowing that they were laxatives. And so that's the story I thought they were going to ask me about. Instead, they asked me about the go-go. And I was like, oh, crap, my mom's going to find out I go-go dance now. And when I came back and talked to her later, she just looked at me. She's like, well, you looked really composed. And then that's all she said.
Next subject.
Right? And then silence.
Oh, I have a question for John Paul. How long have you been dancing?
You know, I've been dancing for just a few years. it was something like I just kind of fell into, actually. I went into a bar one time, and they thought that I was a dancer there, and I was like, I just walked in to get a drink, and so they funneled me to the back room where like they do the dancing, and they're like, "You're here to dance, right?" And it was a like a Latino bar where everybody was speaking Spanish. I didn't know what was going on. They dragged me onto the stage and like we're taking my clothes off. And they're like, "You're dancing, right?" It's like, "No, I'm just here to get a drink."
Oh.
But then they asked me like, "Hey, would you like to come back and dance?" And I was like, "You know what? That sounds fun." And it just stuck after that for fun. So, yeah.
I was just wondering if it was like a complete secret, like the Americans style subterfuge, or just something that you've been doing for a while. And yeah.
Yeah, you know, I know none of my friends or my family really knew about it. I mean, just my friends that I work with knew about it. You know, during the day, you know, I go do my boring day job working marketing and developing products and stuff like that. And then here I am sneaking away at night, going to the clubs, putting on my Speedo or some scantily clad thing, and you know, having people shove dollar bills in my pants. I just loved it. I don't know if I'll ever stop. I'll be like that 80-year-old go-go. The one where everybody's like, "Oh, that's kind of sad."
And you're like, "Still got it."
Right? Yeah. I'll be like, "Yeah, but I may be 80, but I got some cake back here."
My mom's an unrepentant horn dog, and I showed her your IG, and she's like, "Oh, that's about right."
Yeah, I must say, like,
what's been the social media reaction?
Champion.
What's that?
What was the social media reaction like to both of you?
How about you, John Paul? You go first.
Yeah, you go first.
No, you.
Okay, well, I'll just say this: like, you might be the champion, but I did walk away not with money, but asking me to send nude pictures. So in a way, we're kind of both winners.
That's true. That's true.
You know, people came out of the, you know, people I don't know from the East Coast in New Jersey sending me saying, "Hey, you got any other pictures?" So
Special
I'm like, okay,
pictures.
well, right, yeah. There were some people that were kind of really judgmental, like not like passive aggressive saying things to Jeopardy. Like one of them was an unemployed bartender and a go-go, like, "Way to raise the bar, Jeopardy." And I was like, oh my gosh, who are these haters?
Yeah, I saw that one.
But,
I did see that one, and it's like, oh, I guess you didn't make it to the audition. That's all I can think of. It's like, is it just going to be another financial analyst tonight? Is it going to be another law librarian? And I mean, no offense to that nice gal who played with us, but I mean, it's always something along those lines. Somebody's got at least one degree, and then some like the first time I tried out, everybody else, this one guy had discovered a comet. This lady put herself through med school, like while she had 3 small children.
Mm-hmm.
These people are like, "I'm going to move to Ghana and build an orphanage." They're like, "What are you going to do with your money?" I'm like, court fines. You know what I'm saying? Like, just
right?
I was,
but by and large, most people have been super cool, and it's interesting. Like they all kind of want to. Well, I keep getting asked where I dance, so I'm a little concerned about stalkers. But you know, for the most part, people have been really cool, and I love it. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been.
It's been one of the greatest experiences I've ever done. Yeah.
Well, I'm a peacock, so this has been great. It's like my RDA for attention. I need my skin burning, so I don't mind a bit that folks, you know. And I even got one weirdo on Instagram. God bless him. He direct messaged me, and he's like, I posted this picture of these new clogs I bought, and I call them jelly beans because they're black patent leather. And he's like, I don't mean to bother you, but here we go. But I've got a big thing about clogs, and I just think yours are really sexy. I'm like, thank you very much. My photograph of clogs is doing the trick. Okay. But I mean, he came out of nowhere, and I'm assuming it's because of Jeopardy. So I don't usually
this is why Annie and I hit it off so well. I mean, we're like the male and female versions of the same person.
Yes,
exactly.
Thank you.
You know, we just like to have a lot of fun and kind of enjoy this odd little limelight that we're having. And at the same time, we just really love Jeopardy. I mean, you should have seen us. The other contestants were all like kind of getting in the zone and trying to get prepared. And she and I were having like this little mini competition in the seats, you know, trying to say the answers to one another, which you're totally not supposed to do. You know, we're supposed to sit there and be quiet.
Like reverent silence.
We were like those kids in school that just not follow directions very well.
No.
We got the U for unsatisfactory.
For sure. That was not an A for effort. We didn't even bother. Because
I wonder if the contestant coordinators were sitting there looking like you guys and thought, who decided to give these two the call?
Right. Do this. I'm not going to say which one, but that day when I was up on during my game, I walked off stage afterwards, and one of the contestant coordinators, like I said, I won't say which one, came up to me and said, "Your ass looks great in those pants." So I was like, that's fine. I'm like, that's a win for me.
No, Andy, seriously, he walked in and the producers knew who he was. Like, we knew who the returning champ was because he was all propped up on some pillows in the corner like a pasha, and everybody's like serving him various items, and he's like waving serenely at all these frightened, fresh off the CAFO people, and but everybody's like, "John Paul, you're not wearing your button down." And the rest of us are like, "What?" Well, because he had been an alternate because he lives in Southern California, and then when he came back, he was like a little bit very sweet, very confused. He's like, "Well, I thought it was, I didn't know if it was okay to wear it." And apparently somebody had it unbuttoned to the waist, like all Miami style. And all of the female producers are just fluttering around. "Hi, John Paul." Yeah. And those pants, every hair accounted for. Right? I mean, like, so tight. It was awesome. It was pure magic. Absolute magic. But yeah.
Just trying to bring the sexy back to Jeopardy, right?
I dare say it's, I mean, yeah.
I mean, without the mustache, everything after mustache, everything got, real conservative on that show.
Yeah, I dare say a lot of sweater vests, a lot of sweater vests. And we're trying to be all cuckoo, and they're like, "Well, how about business casual?" And we're like, "We brung it.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys had some differing results on the signaling device. I know you mentioned already, John Paul, that you were traditionally slow, even
right.
all the way along. You were certainly a lot more successful, Annie. What was your secret?
Well, they want you to watch these blinking lights. I mean, I'm sure you know this process. They want you to watch the lights and then not begin the clicking until they stop. But I have arthritis in my right hand, and I would like to publicly thank John Paul for not making fun of me while I sat next to him with my hand jammed in my armpit. But it was so cold at the start of the day, like in this place, and they had us do the practice round, and I'm like clicking and clicking, and they called every single group, and I was the only one up there for like 5 rotations because they needed to prove that I could do it. My hand was like, "I'm not doing this," and it was horrible. So while we were waiting for the big number, I just sat there with like my hand just jammed in my arm. But once we got on stage, it had warmed up and my hand was feeling love. And I realized that I don't have the capacity for like this crazy high pressure moment to watch anything, much less a bunch of blinking lights. And I was just like, I just told myself, just start clicking as soon as Alex stops talking. Like the moment the last syllable came out of his mouth, I'm like, I'm going for it. And just started hammering the hell out of that. Because I couldn't try to splice my attention like that. I couldn't divide, it was just, as John Paul can tell you, it's crazy. It's like every drug you've ever done. If you're into that kind of thing, all at the same time on a spaceship and people are screaming at you in other languages. It's cuckoo. It's cuckoo.
One of the things I thought was that whole thing with the lights and don't go until the lights come on or else you get the quarter-second penalty. That just kind of makes it more difficult. And I was trying to do that, I think, too much. And I had thought it'd be better to just go by Alex's voice. And thinking back on it now, when I was doing the rehearsals, I always did better when I just went by the last thing I heard from him instead of trying to watch the visual cues. But then when you get up and it's game time, you think, oh, well, maybe you'll be better off doing what they say, don't just. And I did the wrong thing. I think I probably should have trusted. And then again, you also, whatever was wrong with your hands, God shone his light upon you, and you had a great miracle thumb then, because that thing was, I looked at it and I swear like flashes of light would come off of it. It was like just so
holy
perfectly
music.
timed.
Yeah, angels.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my limp thumb, just thinking like, what's wrong with you? I almost wanted to cut it off. I was so angry,
My flaccid length. That's the thing. I had to wear a brace for about a week. It's this joint right here. It's the most critical one for doing the buzzer. It's this guy. And I had
exactly. Yeah.
I had to wear a brace for a week. It didn't calm down for probably a month because I think about it and it's like, thousands of repetitive. When you're watching the show, half the time all you hear is like this frantic clicking. Because even if it's obvious somebody else got it, you're just still going. And yeah, my hand was wrecked from that. Totally worth it. Nobody's complaining.
Yeah, if they would let you use two hands, it would be so much easier. I don't really understand why they, I mean, I guess they think it looks bad on TV to use two hands, but if you could use two hands, I think that would be so much easier, you know, just to hold it and then kind of tap the top as opposed to trying to use your thumb. I mean, it's terribly, you know, not ergonomic at all. This thing is like trying to click the top of a ballpoint pen.
Yeah,
and
which a lot of
you're
people
just,
practice with.
yeah, and I practice that too, but it's kind of, it gets tiring and you're just, after a while, it's useless. Your thumb's just useless.
Yeah.
I know Earl, the guy who won half a dozen games on Sports Jeopardy shortly before they put the show on hiatus. He used his index. He used his index finger.
Yeah, and Rob Ligori did that our week too. Yeah, we saw this guy.
I tried the same thing, and my finger hurt so bad after rehearsal. I thought like, oh, like I better go back to my thumb. And well, you know, it's the lesser of two evils in that case, you know. But I had tried swapping that, you know. But then after a while, it's kind of like trying to. Well, I don't know if you've ever done graffiti, but I'm not saying I have. But say you did, hypothetically, you hold down the top of the aerosol can, you know, and your little pointer finger's like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the way I felt with my pointer finger. So I went back to my thumb, but at the end of the day, I just wasn't fast enough. I did feel really good. It's funny, you get lucky too with daily doubles. I mean, that's just a roll of the dice. You can hunt for it, but you don't know if you're going to get it. And if you don't get a daily double, it's very hard to win. But I kind of felt good about one question. There was a question about Francis Drake. And it was interesting.
Got that. I never would have gotten it. Yes.
Yeah, it's funny, the things that pop into your head that you just don't, you know, everybody else is kind of blanking on, and you're like, oh, wait a second, I know this, you know, and you cough up Francis Drake, and everybody's kind of like, oh, hey, nice job, and you're like, oh, okay. But that one kind of was like a really rewarding question. It's weird how, you know, you can answer all these questions, or you know all these answers, but every once in a while, one kind of has a little bit of extra meaning to you or whatever. That one was a good one. I like that one.
That was a really good one. And I also wanted to say, I think it's a grand idea to use two hands for Jeopardy because it would be a lot funnier and a lot more like slapstick shenanigans might erupt.
Hilarious.
Yep. Because I can see it now, just like springing noises and like a slide whistle, but yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a lot less stiff and stuffy, that's for sure.
I think my favorite answer probably was the Vatican. Because that has a direct that's a direct consequence of like my lonely and unhappy childhood. I was obsessed with the book of lists, and it was one of the lists in one of those books, and it was the 10 smallest countries. So when that question popped up, I know this wasn't our game, but when that question popped up, I did consider Tuvalu, and I did consider Saudi Arabia. I dismissed them both because Tuvalu has to have enough humans to reproduce, and that's just more than 32 women. And Saudi Arabia, it's like they have different rights than we do, or arguably no rights according to some people, but women are citizens there. So when I thought about them, it's going to be tiny, and it's going to be mostly men. It's not going to be Andorra, which was another entry on the list. Yeah. So, and I like that because it was directly related to something that I was obsessed with when I was a kid, and that felt really good.
You bring up a good point. That's actually one of my favorite things about being on the show too, and also with watching, but especially when you're on the show, when you're pressed and you do that really quick analysis, you know, you go through all this deductive process to come to an answer, and you just feel so good at the end when you get it, you know, especially when you get it and you're the one that gets to answer, you know. But just that's kind of neat, being up there watching, you know, letting that computer work while you're standing there behind a podium trying to look cool. You know, that's a really rewarding process.
I'm not coursing with sweat. Right.
Yeah, right. It's something that you just have never experienced. In any kind of context until you've done that, and you're like, wow, this is kind of neat.
Yeah, that is a really cool part of that.
Okay, so I'm curious to know, what did you guys talk with Alex about after your game? Do you remember?
I do. Do you remember, John Paul?
No, not really, actually. I think I got to be honest, I was a little, and I was thinking like, okay, you're on the box. This is you're performing. You need to be attractive and smile. On the box, baby. But inside, yeah, I was on the box. But now inside, at that point in time, I was so furious with myself because I was like, "You stupid idiot! You're so much faster than that." I could think about. Alex was just there, and I was like, "Unless he's handing me a check, I'm not listening to what he's saying," you know. But anyway, go ahead, Andy. You could say.
He asked us what we thought of the show and if we had fun, and he asked Todd, and Todd said it was great. We couldn't catch up to her, basically, and then I think I might have been talking about my hand freaking out because my husband suggested that I looked a little terrified, and I was probably doing one of my infamous reenactments, which is kind of my thing, and it probably looked a little bit weird on TV, but it was a really nice, really friendly conversation. And I wish we had spent more time getting to know Todd. He seemed really nice, and I loved his smile. I thought that was hilarious. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
He was a cool guy.
Cheerful.
He was a cool guy.
Yeah, really, really cool. Like everybody, everybody was so much fun, and it was so nice. And on my paperwork, they said, do you have any fun or interesting stories about watching Jeopardy with friends or family? And I wrote, no, I'm not allowed to watch Jeopardy with friends and family. Period. It's lonely on top. Period. I mean, it's really cool. It's really, really cool to hang out with a bunch of other people who made the cut. It's really cool.
I must say that both times that I went, and you were there for a few days as well, so that the people are almost always nice.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's an intelligent person. That's a given, but they're also often really nice and just fun to talk to. They really do a pretty decent job. I'd say 9 out of 10 people that are there have just really fascinating lives and do interesting things. Every once in a while, you get the guy where you're kind of like, wait, how did you get in here? Like, because you are terribly boring. You're just not saying anything interesting. You try to make like a nice, polite little social joke, to break the ice, and they kind of snub you a little bit, and you're like, okay, and you walk off, and you say like, I hope that guy loses, But everybody else you're rooting for.
Yeah, just a great experience.
It's a really good crew.
Yeah.
So have you guys kept up with anyone other than each other since taping?
Well, we're in love. We're gonna
we have a torrid side. We have a side thing going on here.
Don't tell my mom.
Let's not add to her disappointment. It's funny. I've been like chatting with people online that I've kind of created these little virtual friendships with. I haven't really met anybody in person. I think that would be kind of a fun thing to go and meet some of these people and talk about our experiences and share jokes and stuff like that. But I haven't met anybody in person.
I have stayed in touch with Serena from game 2. So, but as far as game 3, I don't really remember the contestants. I had a lot of stuff going on that week. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot. Like a dying relative that I was caring for and finishing my last semester and doing all kinds of stuff. My LSATs were 2 days after I landed from filming. It was cuckoo. And so like the last game especially was just a blur, but they seemed like very nice people. But yeah, John Paul and Serena. And then I've made some connections with former contestants just from Twitter who understand the life, and that's been really cool. Really, really cool.
So how is it different now watching? I know I saw you in between taping and airing on Twitter when watching, kind of tweeting out your responses to a bunch of the clues. So how is it different now watching Jeopardy now that you've been a contestant? And I guess for you, John Paul, as well, if you're watching it on the treadmill.
Awesome.
True. Go ahead, Annie.
Well, first off, I always thought that I would be that person who would bet it all for Daily Doubles, and I stuck true to my roots, But then, of course,
did, yeah. that was fun.
That third game, I think it was like to 11,000 in a swell foop. I actually, at full disclosure, you guys, I didn't watch the third game. I was afraid I wasn't going to be gracious. I tried to be like John Paul was saying. I tried to be gracious, but I was afraid I was going to have stink face because that's kind of how I am. I was literally in a prison for game 3. My brother is incarcerated, and I was visiting him in the visiting room. I said, I'd literally rather be locked in a building full of felons than watch myself lose on national TV. But I was determined. This is, you can look up the records. I was visiting my brother on Friday. I just couldn't do it. But, actually, after watching Alex Jacob do his thing, it just made me even more determined. And so now, when I'm home watching people and they've got $25,000 and they're betting $3,000, it feels great to not just scream at them and call them cowards, but feel like I have the right to scream at them and call them cowards. It feels great. So especially with like, nobody wants this cautious, mealy-mouthed milk toast. No, get in there, man. Get in there. Show them what you got. That's what feels great about watching it now. Yeah.
You know, for me, actually, I didn't. I don't know. I kind of was just not as interested in seeing myself when my show was going to air, and I think I just blocked out remembering, you know, when the show was actually going to air on, which is why it came up, kind of snuck up on me. I still like watching Jeopardy, but it is kind of a bittersweet thing because I can't help but think like, oh man, if I'd only done this, you know, I tend to be very hard on myself and look at, okay, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, you know, you should have experimented more quickly with, you know, changing things with your thumb, all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't matter who I'm watching, even if I'm not watching myself now, when I watch whoever's doing it, I'm like, it's like flashbacks to Nam, you know what I mean? I just kind of think like, oh, that's me, and I should have done this, I should have done that. And so that gets a little tiresome. But then all of a sudden, you know, a category comes up that I love, and I tear it up. So all is well in the universe. But I will say this, Brit Lit, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it going into it. And I said, you know, I better not get anything about British authors. And God damn it, if it wasn't the last question in Jeopardy final, you know, and there was a little bit of a smile, like an ironic smile on my face when that came up. I was like, I'm going to get this wrong. I was like, I can never remember British people and what they wrote. For some reason, I don't know. It's not something that sticks with me. And it's funny because I like to write, but I can never remember who wrote what, especially British people. So when I got it and it was like, oh, it's Beatrix Potter. And like, any idiot should have known that. And I couldn't remember it at the time. I was like, perfect. I did exactly what I didn't want to do when I went on Jeopardy. I had a runaway game and I got Brit Lit. So now I'm kind of I had a little bit of a stinky attitude about it for a little while when I was watching Jeopardy, like, damn it, you know, Brit Lit, runaway game, exact opposite of what I wanted to do. But now when I watch, it's just like it was before, you know, I still love watching the game, but I have a lot more sympathy for people who are having trouble ringing in.
It's that's the thing. It's like they say this at the beginning of the day. Everybody knows the answers. It's who's fastest, who can break the rhythm, who's, you know, and it's true. I have a attention universe. John Paul whispered answers to me for 2 whole games before we went on stage, and he got almost every single one of them right. The guy's got the chops.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, it's true. You knew everything.
You know, it's almost just kind of like, you know, I remember them saying it's the luck of the draw with the categories and all kinds of things. And at first you want to be a little dismissive of that because you think like, well, you know, but I can hang. But then every once in a while, someone else gets up there and they get a sweet spot of categories. And you're like, I don't stand a chance here because like we are operating in their wheelhouse right now. And it does make a difference. It changes like the energy. You know, you have to kind of constantly get your head in the game. And then you have those breaks, and sometimes the commercial breaks are actually a little counterproductive because you get out of play mode and then you start thinking about, you look at the score and you see like how far you're behind and you start thinking too much about, you know, the fact that where the scores are, and it's better just to keep playing. So I kind of was a little distracted, I guess, by taking the commercial breaks. I wish that we didn't have them. But all those little things come into play and you just don't know until you have the experience. So
very true. Very true.
And all, it's been just a really fun thing to do. And it's an interesting thing. People are like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I was Jeopardy's first go-go dancing contestant. And so like, I've got like a conversation starter for the rest of my life, you know, so that makes it kind of worth it.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, one more question I've got here on my own note card. John Paul, you get to answer this too because you were an alternate once, and of course, Annie, you got the chance to carry over between Wednesday and Thursday. So you guys both had the chance to eat some sort of food on Sony's dime at the Sony Commissary. And so one question I always like to ask here on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, what did you have for lunch on Sony's dime?
What did you eat?
Okay, so I eat a lot, and I had to use 2 of their vouchers. But fortunately, But fortunately, like they were really cool about it. I think I got two turkey BLTs or a turkey BLT and then like a side of something, you know. And I think I wound up spending like $15 worth of sandwiches. So they were kind of looking at me a little bit like, okay, you need to dial back, buddy. And I mean, I was so full when I went back the first time that I was glad they didn't pick me for show 4 or 5, because show 4, I started falling asleep. I was sleeping in the audience, and fortunately, I snapped out of it by show 5. It didn't wind up mattering, but yeah, my advice is if you go, eat light at lunch. I was just trying to hit my calories for the day for training. Bad idea. Just stay away from the roast beef.
It's a snoozer. I had a Swiss mushroom burger, but I just wanted meat, so they made it with 2 patties for me, and then I just wolfed it down like an animal. And then I tried to make conversation with these 2 women that I was sitting with, and one of them, Serena, really cool gal. We're actually friends on Facebook. She's the other person besides John Paul that I stayed in touch with. But the other gal was not very forthcoming, and I realized later that she probably realized that the contestant pool was really small and she might be up. And those were the 2 women that I competed against. So, but I'm sitting here wolfing down this food and trying to talk to this gal, and she's just not communicating. And I realized later, I hope she didn't think that I was trying to intimidate her. I'm just an idiot, man. If I'm like trying to make friends and blah, 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 whoever, wolfing food, staring at them, and I probably looked even crazier than I really am. But Serena was super cool. Yes.
At lunch, I'm trying to start conversations like, so tell me about your life. What do you do? And I think people are thinking I'm playing head games. I'm like, no, this is just lunch with John. You know, this is just how I roll. You know, we're gonna leave here being best friends.
Right. And Serena was into it, but the Rachel, she wasn't feeling it, and I feel rather bad because I really didn't mean anything by it. I was just chatting and watching those fires in Tennessee.
I think that that's probably to be honest with you, I think that's the better way of going about it, you know, being in there, trying to make friends, because, you know, it's a once in a lifetime experience, and really enjoy it. And absolutely, that's, I think I think more people should try to do that.
Well, I mean, what's the point if you're not going to be having fun or making friends? I mean, this is a game show. This isn't just like a exit strategy for your career. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nothing to take that seriously. That's like no. It's like they say about lottery.
I think this might be a little bit of a bump for my go-go career, though. Actually, so I think I'm gonna get more gigs, more dancing gigs out of it. So maybe I will lose my day job and just have the night job.
And live the dream. Train for free.
Live the go-go dream. Thanks, Jeopardy, for helping me with my go-go.
You've enriched my life immeasurably.
So some comments we've got. We do have a YouTube chat going, and we've got a few things going. Alex Epstein wants to say his mother was a big fan of John Paul. His father was a huge fan of Annie. So
good.
The home wreckers, right?
It's good to know I have at least one mom, Rudy.
Let's see. Regarding the unusual occupations, certainly harkens back to Weird Al a little bit. This one from Matt Carberry. Quote, I was there to match my intellect on national TV against a plumber and an architect, both with a PhD. Let's see. Jason Sterlacki jumps in with a J Life with back responding to something you said earlier, Annie. Michael Thomas said Scott Lord also used his index finger on the buzzer. And
I love it.
Let's see. We've got Jay Johnson with lunch comments. Come on, no salad. And RAR protein victory. So we have RAR protein victory with your lunch choice there, Annie. This isn't an exit strategy to your career. Ken Jennings, please pick up the white courtesy phone.
Well, I wouldn't rely on it. It's like people when they have the little disclaimer about how the lottery is not investment purposes or not a good strategy for retirement. And then the next week, there's always somebody standing in front of their like dilapidated home talking about how they won the big one. But Like that's how I feel. It's like, why get too competitive about something that's supposed to be fun? But yeah, that's true. Ken Jennings aside, I don't think it's an exit strategy. I think it's just for fun.
Absolutely. And so I'm through all of my questions. Do you guys have anything else that you thought I'd bring up tonight and didn't, or anything else you guys want to ask each other?
Have you gotten my direct message yet, John Paul? Because I sent you another one on Instagram.
No, you did? I'll look again. Yeah, we were having a hard time there, but yeah, I'll look again.
I mean, I'll screenshot it, but it's got my phone number on it, so just to prove that it was sent.
Okay, I believe you. All
right.
I'm looking forward to visiting.
Absolutely.
And we can husband or we can leave him behind.
Right.
Well, I will say this. So I will say for people that are taking the test, keep taking it. And I was there with people who, like me, lucked out and got there the first time. And then I was there with people who'd taken it lots of times. And just keep taking it because it's kind of such a worthwhile experience. You have really nothing to lose. So if you get a little frustrated because maybe you're not picked or whatever the first or second time, so what? Try it again. It's just, you got to remember, it's a TV show. And if this was like the SATs where scores were all it was about, then, the testing is kind of all that matters. But, you're there to help them do good TV. And as long as you can remember that you can have fun and kind of show the world how smart you are, but at the same time be good television for them, well, that's a win-win recipe, and they're going to love it.
Well, I will say I love John Paul has a wonderful sense of humor, and we're both pretty inappropriate people. And I will say that since it was trimmed from the interview about my onomastics thing, Alex did ask why I was into it. And my mom's family were Jews, and so it was changed from something long to shorter, but those kinds of names always interest me. But my maiden name is Box, like cardboard. And I was really hoping that we get on national TV because I thought it was really funny and cool. So yes, America, BOX. So yeah, that's why I got into names, and I guess there wasn't time for it on the show, but yeah.
That's the other thing too, is a lot of what happens on stage doesn't make it to TV.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which might look a little disconnected, and that's usually because of the trimming. So, yeah.
Yep, we've got to get that down to 22 minutes. So.
Yeah. So I was really impressed by Alex. I mean, he has this gig for a reason. I could never keep that ship running like that. And he's out there yakking away with the audience during commercial breaks and fielding questions I'm sure he's heard a million times before, and it was really cool. It was really cool.
I'm glad you both, got the opportunity to be on Jeopardy and also share your story, your contestant stories with me and with all the others tuning in on #Jeopardy Live panel. So thank you very much, both of you. The next episode, we're going to go next Monday night at 8:05. We're going to go back to our normal time for sure. I'm just going to put up the credits here and. Oh, how many questions before you guys go? Jason Sterlacky's asking, how many times did someone in the audience ask Alex when he was retiring?
Oh, God, that happens.
Yeah.
It was there. It happened times I was there.
Yeah. So one girl asked him what his favorite, if he had any special talents, and he said no. And it was... But I think he went on to volunteer that his favorite animal was a musk ox. So that was kind of a cool segue because it was really random, which I love. I love random.
I will say very much an eccentric. So sometimes his answers to the audience's questions, you can see that they leave a little unfulfilled. But those of us in the audience who really like Alex, we have a little smirk on our face because we're like, what a smart ass. He's kind of a real subtle smart ass.
Yeah. It was, he's got a great energy. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you very much for tuning in and for joining me tonight here on #Jeopardy Live panel. I'll see you guys next Monday night at 8:05 with another group of former contestants. So thank you very much and have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes.